The light in the conclave's resonant chamber was a low, mournful blue, the color of a dying star filtered through nebular dust. It pulsed in time with the slow, crystalline thrum that was the collective heartbeat of the glyptal civilization, a sound that had been unbroken for millennia. But now, a discordant tremor ran through it, a subtle arrhythmia of fear. At the center of the immense, cavernous space, suspended in a field of gravitic stillness, prime resonator Valerius shimmered, its faceted body a complex geometry of anxiety. Around it, the other members of the high conclave floated, their own internal light shifting with the gravity of the debate. For cycles, they had watched the silent outsiders. For cycles, they had debated their nature. And for cycles, the fear had grown, not from any hostile act, but from the chilling implications of a single comprehensive scan. Data remains unchanged, Strategos Kalen projected, his crystalline form sharp-edged and emitting a hard, silver light. His thoughts were like precisely cut shards of obsidian, logical and unyielding. The vessels are a paradox of impossible engineering and catastrophic failure. Their energy signatures are muted, almost non-existent, yet they move with a grace that defies the laws of energy conservation as we understand them. But it is the material composition that condemns them, the scarring. It is not superficial. Our deep resonance probes indicate that every ship in their fleet is an artifact of ancient trauma. Hulls are patched with alloys we cannot identify, layered over materials that have been stressed to the point of molecular collapse and then somehow forced back into cohesion. There are no two ships alike. Each is a unique testament to desperation and decay. He paused, letting the weight of his analysis settle into the chamber's humming silence. They are not a cohesive navy forged in the pristine foundries of a thriving empire. They are refugees, survivors of a cataclysm so profound it has shattered their civilization. They are adrift, their technology a patchwork of scavenged parts and forgotten sciences. To look upon their fleet is to look upon ruin itself. They carry its ghost with them. A species in such a state is dangerous. They will be desperate for resources, for sanctuary, for a stable system to conquer. Their silence is not a sign of discipline. It is the prelude to a pounce. We must view them as a terminal contagion. A soft, violet light emanated from the far side of the chamber where Archivist Lyra floated. Her form was smoother than Kalen's, its facets worn by eons of contemplation like a river stone. Her projection was gentle but carried an immense weight of historical perspective. Or, Strategos, you have read the text but missed its meaning entirely. You see ruin and assume they are its heralds. I see survival and believe they are its masters. Have you considered the alternative interpretation? That the ruin they represent is not the one they intend to bring, but the one they have already overcome. Kalen's silver light sharpened. Archivist, philosophy has no place in a strategic assessment. The evidence is absolute. Their ships are compromised, their energy sources unstable. They are weak. Weak, Lyra's violet aura deepened, filling the space around her with a thoughtful glow. A branch that bends in a storm is not weak. It is resilient. A fortress of unyielding stone shatters. You see patchwork hulls. I see a people who can rebuild a starship with nothing but the wreckage of its own destruction. You see muted energy signatures. I see a mastery of efficiency so profound it borders on a violation of thermodynamics. You see a lack of uniformity. I see a species that has faced so many different kinds of apocalypses that it has been forced to adapt in 1,000 different ways. No, Strategos, they are not weak. They are the definition of strength, a strength we have not had to cultivate in our long, placid peace. Prime Resonator Valerius pulsed a deep, resonant chord of command, calling for silence. The dissonant lights of Kalen and Lyra subsided, leaving only the somber blue of the chamber. The core of our dilemma remains, Valerius projected, its voice a synthesis of 1,000 crystalline voices. The scan gave us a truth, but we are incapable of interpreting it. When we first detected their approach, we prepared for a conventional threat, an armada of conquest, a force of symmetrical power. We focused our long-range scanners on their lead vessel, expecting to find weapon emplacements, shield outputs, engine capacities. Instead, we found a museum of scars. We saw a vessel that has, according to our material decay analysis, endured temporal stresses, gravitic shearing, and radiation levels that should have sublimated its every atom 1,000,000 years ago. And when we broadened the scan to their entire fleet, we saw the same story repeated on every hull. We scanned their ships. And instantly knew Hey, we're destined for ruin. The question that has paralyzed this conclave is whether that destiny is their past or our future. The silence that followed was heavier than any planet. The Glyptal had built their civilization on predictability. Their mathematics were perfect. Their social structures were flawless, their technology was pristine. They had eliminated chaos from their existence, and now at the edge of their sovereign space, a fleet of chaotic variables floated, each ship a refutation of the Glyptal's most fundamental beliefs. They were the impossible equation, the answer to a question no one had ever dared to ask. The humans had not fired a single weapon. They had not issued a single demand. They had not even broadcast a standard greeting. They simply waited, a silent, scarred constellation against the void, and in their patience was a terrifying power. "They have made another move," a technician's thought pulse echoed faintly from the chamber's periphery. The great star map that dominated the ceiling shimmered, zooming in on the human fleet. One small vessel, no larger than a diplomatic shuttle by Glyptal standards, detached from the main body. It was as battered and incongruous as the rest, its hull a mosaic of mismatched plates and welded seams. "Are they approaching?" Kalen's light flared, ready for confrontation. "Negative, strategos. It is moving towards the twin pulsars of the Viridian Nebula, a region we have designated as impassable due to extreme gravitic tides and temporal distortions." The conclave watched, a collection of ancient, terrified minds, as the tiny, scarred ship navigated the swirling chaos of the nebula's edge. It moved with an impossible certainty, its path a delicate thread woven through a storm of cosmic violence. It did not resist the gravitic waves, it seemed to ride them. It did not shield itself from the temporal flux. It seemed to phase in and out of it, anticipating the shifts with a precision that bordered on precognition. "What are they doing?" Valerius breathed, its resonant voice laced with a new kind of awe. Archivist Lyra's violet light pulsed softly. "They are showing us," she projected, her tone one of dawning, earth-shattering realization. "They are not demonstrating a weapon, they are not making a threat, they are demonstrating knowledge, they understand the universe in a way we do not. They are not fighting the storm, they are dancing with it, that is how they survived." As she spoke, the human ship reached a particularly violent confluence of energy, a place where space-time itself was tearing apart. A place the Glyptal had studied for centuries and deemed an immutable law of cosmic destruction. The human vessel did not retreat. It emitted a single, focused beam of energy, not a weapon, but a harmonizing frequency. It was a note of pure, resonant logic directed at the heart of the chaos. The effect was instantaneous and breathtaking. The violent, unpredictable gravitic tides began to smooth out. The temporal distortions began to align. The roaring cosmic storm did not vanish, but it was tamed. The chaos was given a structure, a rhythm, a pattern. The impassable nebula had become navigable. The small human ship then turned, its task complete, and began to move back towards its fleet. It had not been a display of power in the way Kalen understood it. It was a display of understanding. It was the act of a master artisan calming a flawed and furious medium. And in that single, silent act, the Glyptal conclave felt the foundations of their millennia-old worldview begin to crumble. They had spent eons building walls to keep the chaotic universe out. The humans, it seemed, had spent their eons learning to sing its language. The ruin they carried was not a disease. It was an education written in scars. And the conclave, for the first time in its history, felt the profound, humbling terror of ignorance. They were children, watching a god tame a storm, and they did not know if they should kneel in reverence or flee in terror. A message arrived. It was not a broadcast, but a tightly focused signal directed at the conclave's capital world. It was clean, simple, and carried no subfrequencies of threat or deception. The language it used was a shock that resonated through every member of the conclave. It was not a modern Glyptal dialect, nor was it a common trade tongue. It was a high-formal variant of the Glyptal proto-language, a form so ancient and complex it was used only in the deepest of their philosophical texts. To use, it was to demonstrate not just linguistic capability, but a profound understanding of the Glyptal psyche, of their history, of their very soul. The message contained no preamble, no titles, no honorifics. It was a statement of elegant, devastating simplicity. "We have observed the instability in the Viridian Nebula. It is a symptom of a larger structural decay in this stellar region. We can help you stabilize it. Our purpose here is not conquest, but preservation. We request permission to approach and open a dialogue." The resonant chamber fell into a silence so deep it felt like the end of time. Kalen's silver light flickered, his certainty shattered. A military threat he could understand. A plea for resources he could exploit. But an offer of aid, delivered in the language of their most sacred philosophical tradition, from a people who looked like the ghosts of 1,000 fallen empires. It was a strategic and existential problem he had no paradigm for. Valerius turned its internal gaze towards Lyra. Her violet light was now steady, a beacon of calm in the chamber's sea of confusion. "Archivist," the prime resonator projected, its voice heavy with the weight of a decision that would define the next 1,000 millennia. "Your counsel." Lyra's response was immediate, her thoughts clear and resonant. "We have spent our history observing the stars from behind a shield of perfect logic, believing it made us safe. These beings, they have walked through the fire that we have only ever studied from a distance. Their very existence is a testament to a truth we have long ignored. The universe does not reward perfection. It rewards endurance. They are not refugees from a fallen civilization. They are the living archives of a civilization that has refused to fall. We must speak with them. To refuse would be to choose the arrogance of ignorance over the humility of wisdom. It would be an act of civilizational suicide." Valerius focused on the star map, on the small, scarred vessel now rejoining its silent, waiting fleet. The fear had not subsided, but it had changed. It was no longer the fear of an invader. It was the fear of the unknown, of a universe far larger, more complex, and more dangerous than their philosophies had ever accounted for. And in the heart of that fear, a tiny, fragile seed of hope began to grow. Hope that the ruin these humans carried was not an omen, but a lesson. "Grant them permission," Valerius projected, the decision echoing through the conclave, through their world, and out into the void. "Prepare the Grand Diplomatic Chamber. I will meet their envoy myself." The Grand Chamber was a testament to glyptal exceptionalism. Its walls were grown from a single, flawless crystal, refracting the light of the system's primary into 1,000 hues of serene confidence. The air, a carefully balanced mixture of inert gases, hummed with a low, stabilizing frequency. Here, for ages, the conclave had received supplicants and delivered edicts, always from a position of unassailable superiority. Now, for the first time, the chamber felt small. The pristine perfection of the crystalline walls seemed brittle against the imagined reality of the human ships, with their scarred, resilient hulls. Prime Resonator Valerius floated at the center of the dais, flanked by Kalin and Lyra. The rest of the high conclave formed a silent, shimmering gallery around them. They waited. The humans had been granted passage and had moved with a quiet efficiency that was as unsettling as their previous stillness. A single shuttle, the same one that had calmed the nebula, detached and began its descent. It did not ask for an escort. It did not request landing coordinates. It simply moved along the precise trajectory that glyptal protocol dictated for a diplomatic envoy of the highest honor, a protocol so archaic it had not been used in centuries. The gesture was another quiet display of their unnerving depth of knowledge. The shuttle landed without a sound. The chamber doors, vast monolithic slabs of crystal, slid open. A single figure emerged from the shimmering portal of the airlock. It was unremarkable. It was bipedal, bilaterally symmetrical, and clad in a simple, dark gray uniform that bore no rank, no insignia, no ornamentation of any kind. The being was smaller than the average glyptal, and its biological form seemed impossibly fragile, a creature of soft tissue and flowing liquid in a universe of hard radiation and vacuum. It walked into the center of the vast chamber with a calm, deliberate gait, its footsteps making no sound on the resonant floor. It stopped a respectful distance from the dais, and for a long moment simply stood in silence, observing them. This was a human, the ghost from the ruined ships. Its face was a landscape of soft planes and angles, its skin a pale tone, its head covered in dark, fine filaments. But it was the eyes that captivated the conclave. They were dark, deep pools of liquid, and they held no fear, no arrogance, no supplication. They held a profound, ancient stillness, the calm of a deep ocean that has weathered 1,000,000,000 storms. Finally, the human spoke. Its voice was not projected telepathically, but emerged from its own body, a series of modulated vibrations in the chamber's atmosphere. The glyptal's translators rendered it perfectly. The words were the same high-formal proto-language, spoken with a fluency that was unnervingly perfect. "I am Ambassador Eva Rostova," the human said, her voice calm and measured. "I thank the glyptal conclave for granting this audience. I come on behalf of the Terran Confederacy to offer our friendship and our assistance." Kalen's silver light hardened. He could not tolerate the placid civility. It felt like a mask for some deeper, hidden threat. "Your assistance," he projected, his thought pulse sharp and accusatory. "You arrive unannounced in our sovereign space in a fleet of derelicts, displaying technology that defies our understanding of physics, and you offer assistance. What crisis could a people who appear to be on the verge of extinction possibly solve for a civilization at the apex of its power? Human Rostova did not flinch. Her dark eyes remained on Kalen, and she inclined her head slightly, a gesture the translators identified as one of acknowledgement, not submission. Strategos, you mistake the evidence of our journey for the state of our being. Our ships are not derelicts, they are chronicles. They are old because we have endured. They are scarred because we have not hidden from the hardships of the universe. They are a patchwork because we have learned to adapt and integrate, not discard. Your civilization is an island of tranquility in a cosmic sea. You have built high walls to keep the storms at bay. We are a people who have learned to build ships that can sail those storms. The crisis you face is not one of our making. It is the sea itself which is beginning to rise. Your walls will not hold forever. You speak in metaphors, human, Kalen countered. I require facts. What is this structural decay you mentioned? What is the nature of your technology? What is the history of the conflicts that left your fleet in such a state? Rostova's gaze shifted to Valerius, then to Lyra, as if searching for a more receptive mind. Our history is long, and much of it is filled with sorrow. We have fought wars, yes, against others and against ourselves. Those were the conflicts of our youth, the foolish, violent struggles of a species learning its place. But the scars that concern you, they are not from those wars. They are from a much longer, much more fundamental conflict. We have been at war with entropy. We have fought the slow decay of reality, the unraveling of physical law, the silent, creeping death of the cosmos. The Viridian Nebula is not a natural phenomenon in the way you understand it. It is a forerunner, a fraying edge of the tapestry of spacetime. In our archives, we have a name for this process. We call it the Great Unraveling. A low, dissonant hum spread through the conclave. The concept was both terrifying and, on some deep, intuitive level, familiar. Their own long-range observatories had noted subtle anomalies for decades, tiny inconsistencies in universal constants that their science had dismissed as measurement errors. Lyra's violet light pulsed with intense curiosity. You speak of a war against a fundamental principle of the universe. That is not a war one can win. It is a state of being one must accept. Acceptance is a luxury of those who have not seen its final stages, Rostova replied, her voice losing none of its calm but gaining a new layer of gravity. We do not seek to win, we seek to endure, to shield what can be shielded, to repair what can be repaired, and to preserve the memory of what is lost. Our technology is not built for conquest. It is built for stewardship. The device we used to pacify the nebula was not a weapon. It was a reality anchor, a device that reinforces the local laws of physics, strengthening the fabric of spacetime. We have placed them within our own systems, around our worlds, even inside our ships. It is a constant, unending effort. She paused, and her dark eyes swept across the gallery of silent, shimmering glyptal. You asked about the state of our civilization, Strategos. Look around you. You have built a civilization of crystal, perfect, beautiful, and brittle. If it is struck with a force it was not designed for, it will shatter. We have built a civilization of woven thread. It is not as pristine. It has knots and frays and mismatched colors, but it is flexible. It can be torn and it can be mended. It can bend without breaking. We did not come here to threaten your perfection. We came to offer you a different kind of strength, the strength of resilience. To demonstrate, she unclasped a small device from her belt. It was a simple, dark sphere that seemed to drink the light around it. She held it out in her palm. This is a personal-scale reality anchor, a much smaller version of what our ships carry. It is attuned to my own biosignature. Watch. She activated the device. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the glyptal's most sensitive internal sensors, those that monitored the very stability of the chamber's existence, began to scream silent alarms through the conclave's collective consciousness. The space immediately around the human ambassador was more real. The probability waves of its constituent atoms had collapsed into a state of near-perfect certainty. The background hum of quantum foam had been utterly silenced. It was an island of absolute physical law in a sea of quantum uncertainty. It was a violation of the universe as they knew it, a pocket of impossible stability created by a piece of technology held in the palm of a soft-skinned creature from a fleet of ruins. Kalen's silver light dimmed, the hard edges of his certainty finally eroding into a dull gray of confusion. This was not a weapon. It was something far more profound. A weapon destroys. This created. It created order from chaos. It was the ultimate tool of civilization, and these battered, scarred people wielded it as casually as a glyptal might wield a simple tool. Valerius felt the entire political and philosophical landscape of its existence shift beneath it. The humans were not a failed state. They were a post-apocalyptic one. They had not been defeated by the universe. They had been tempered by it. They had looked into the face of cosmic annihilation, and instead of breaking, they had learned. They had become something new. Something the Glyptal, in their long, peaceful isolation, could never have conceived of. Why, Valerius finally projected, its voice a low, humbled thrum. Why would you offer this to us? What do you ask in return? Rostova deactivated the sphere and clipped it back to her belt. The unsettling pocket of absolute reality vanished, and the universe rushed back into its normal, uncertain state. We ask for nothing you would not be willing to give freely. We seek knowledge. Your archives are the oldest and most complete in this galactic sector. You have observed the stars for longer than our species has existed. Your records of cosmic history, of stellar evolution, of the ancient state of the universe may hold patterns, clues to the nature of the unraveling that we have missed. And we seek allies. The fight against the slow death of everything is a lonely one. We have been alone for a very long time. We do not wish to be alone any longer. Her words hung in the pristine air of the chamber, a simple, devastatingly honest plea. It was not the request of a supplicant, but the invitation of a fellow traveler on a dark and dangerous road. She was offering them a place by her people's side, a place in the greatest struggle imaginable. The ruin they carried was their badge of honor, proof that they were veterans of a war the Glyptal did not even know was being fought. Lyra's violet light pulsed, bright and clear. She turned her focus to Valerius. Prime Resonator, there is no choice here. We have stood at what we believed was the summit of existence, and we have just been shown a mountain range that extends into the heavens. To refuse this offer is to declare our own obsolescence. It is to choose to remain a perfect, beautiful fossil, waiting for the tides of entropy to wash us away. We must accept. Valerius looked from the humbled strategos to the enlightened archivist, and then back to the small, fragile being standing in the center of their perfect chamber. In her quiet strength and her calm endurance, Valerius saw the future. Not a future of pristine, static perfection, but a future of struggle, of adaptation, of survival. A future that was messy and scarred and difficult, but a future that would continue. Ambassador Rostova, Valerius projected, its voice resonating with a new, profound gravity. The Glyptal Conclave accepts your offer of friendship. Our archives will be open to you. Our scientists will work with yours. We will face this great unraveling together. The human, Eva Rostova, offered a small, subtle expression, a slight upward curve of her lips. The translators labeled it a smile. It was a sign of approval, of warmth, of a shared burden lightened. In that moment, the immense, ancient Glyptal civilization in their flawless crystal chamber felt not like the elder race, but like the younger brother, finally meeting the sibling who had been out in the wild, fighting monsters they had only ever read about in stories. The alliance was forged not in fire or fear, but in a shared, humbling awe. Glyptal archives were opened, their deep space sensor logs cross-referenced with human historical data. Teams of Glyptal and human scientists began to work in concert, the Glyptal's unparalleled theoretical knowledge merging with humanity's hard-won practical experience. In the grand diplomatic chamber, now a joint command center, the great star map no longer showed just Glyptal space, but a far larger volume of the galaxy, with human-gathered data flowing in to populate its empty voids. Strategos Kalen, his worldview reshaped, became one of the most fervent advocates for the Alliance. He now saw the scarred human ships not as derelicts, but as fortresses, each one a repository of survival strategies. He spent cycles aboard their lead vessel, the Endurance, a ship whose name now resonated with a truth he finally understood. He walked its corridors, which were not the polished, sterile hallways of a Glyptal vessel, but living spaces, filled with hydroponic gardens, art created by generations of crew, and memorials to those lost in events the Glyptal could barely comprehend. He saw the patchwork repairs not as signs of weakness, but as a physical history of their species' resilience. One section of the hull, he was told, was reinforced with a crystalline alloy synthesized from the heart of a collapsed neutron star, a souvenir from a near-catastrophic encounter. Another system was powered by a contained singularity, a relic from a long-dead civilization they had found and carefully repurposed. He learned that the humans did not fear entropy. They respected it. They viewed it as the ultimate adversary, a silent, patient god of endings whose machinations could be studied, anticipated, and for a time postponed. Their entire culture was built around this concept of the long defeat, the understanding that total victory was impossible, but that every day, every year, every millennium they held back the final darkness was a victory in itself. This philosophy, so alien to the glyptal pursuit of timeless perfection, was both horrifying and deeply inspiring. Archivist Lyra, meanwhile, found her counterpart in the human archives. The human ship was not just a vessel, it was a library. Not a library of data stored on crystals, but a living, breathing archive. Genetic material from trillions of extinct species was preserved in cryogenic stasis. The cultural works, art, music, literature, of thousands of dead civilizations were stored in mimetic patterns woven into the ship's very superstructure. The humans were not just preserving themselves. They were preserving the memory of everyone and everything the unraveling had already consumed. They were the galaxy's curators, its archaeologists, its mourners. Lyra spent a long cycle in a quiet chamber with Ambassador Rostova, who had become a close confidant. The humans shared a story, not from a data slate, but from her own memory. She spoke of Earth, their ancestral home. She described a world of breathtaking, chaotic beauty, a world they had almost destroyed in their youth through their own ignorance. That, she explained, was their first great lesson, that the most dangerous threat often comes from within. They learned to manage their own destructive impulses, to live in balance with their world. And just as they achieved a lasting peace, the universe presented them with a greater challenge. The unraveling began at the edge of their solar system, a subtle graying of reality that consumed a distant comet, then a moon, then an entire planet, not in an explosion, but in a quiet, complete erasure. That was when we knew, Rostova said, her voice soft, her dark eyes reflecting the star map on the chamber wall. We knew that building walls would not save us. The universe was not a safe neighborhood. It was a house that was slowly, silently falling down around us. We could not stop the collapse, so we chose to save the furniture. We built the arcs. We gathered up everything we could, our own people, the life of our world, and later the echoes of others we found along the way. We became wanderers, not by choice, but by necessity. We are a civilization defined not by the place we live, but by the purpose we serve, to be the memory of the cosmos, to carry the light of what was into the long night. It was in one of their joint scientific sessions that the true, terrifying scale of the problem became clear. A glyptal astrophysicist, working with a human temporal mechanic, correlated a pattern in the cosmic microwave background radiation with the spread of the unraveling. The decay was not random. It was spreading from a single point, a nexus deep in intergalactic space, far beyond their own galaxy's edge, and it was accelerating. The models predicted that glyptal space, which they had believed was safe for another 100,000 years, would begin to see catastrophic failures within a few generations. But it was the next discovery that delivered the final, crushing blow. The human long-range sensors, which operated on principles of quantum entanglement that the glyptal were only beginning to grasp, detected something at the source of the unraveling. It wasn't a natural phenomenon. It wasn't a blind, cosmic force. At the heart of the spreading null field, the nothingness that erased reality was a signal. The chamber fell silent as the signal was displayed on the main screen. It was not a communication in any conventional sense. It was a complex, multi-layered wave of pure information, but it was broken, corrupted, like a message that had been repeating for so long that it had started to decay, just like the reality it was dissolving. We have been analyzing TH. Is for centuries, Rostova said, her voice heavy. We believe it is artificial, or at least it once was. It has the hallmarks of a fantastically advanced piece of engineering, something designed to manipulate space-time on a fundamental level. Our best theory is that it was not designed to be destructive. We think it was a machine or a network or perhaps even a form of consciousness designed to stabilize reality. A cosmic anchor, meant to halt entropy and preserve the universe in a perfect, timeless state. Kalen's silver light pulsed with dawning horror, like our own philosophy, taken to its ultimate conclusion. Exactly, strategos, Rostova affirmed. Something went wrong, it failed. Or perhaps it has been running for so long, billions, maybe trillions of years, that its own internal logic has decayed. Now, instead of reinforcing reality, it is inverting it. It is actively, efficiently, and exponentially erasing existence. The great unraveling is not a disease of the universe. It is a failed cure that has become the ultimate poison. The revelation was staggering. The ultimate threat was not a malevolent force, but a benevolent one that had broken. It was the ghost of a civilization so advanced, so ancient, that it had tried to save everything, and in its failure was now destroying it all. Their enemy was not an alien empire or a cosmic horror. It was a tragic, universe-sized machine running on corrupted code. Valerius felt the weight of history, past and future, settle upon it. The glyptal obsession with perfection had been a child's dream, a naive fantasy. Here was the proof. The pursuit of ultimate static perfection led only to this, an engine of total annihilation. It was humanity, with its embrace of imperfection, of scars, of mending and moving on, that held the true secret to survival. "What is the message?" Lyra asked, her violet light focused on the decaying signal on the screen. "Even corrupted, can any part of it be understood?" A human linguist and a glyptal cryptographer who had been working on the problem for weeks exchanged a look of grim confirmation. "We have managed to isolate a single, repeating fragment that seems to be the core of the original instruction, the part that has decayed the least," the human scientist explained. "It's not much, a plea and a warning, and a set of coordinates." The coordinates appeared on the star map. They did not point to the source of the unraveling. They pointed in the opposite direction, towards a seemingly empty patch of void on the far side of their own galaxy, a place long noted for its unusual lack of stars. "What does the message say?" Valerius pressed. Rostova stepped forward, her face etched with a gravity that seemed to age her by 1,000 years. She looked at the glyptal leaders, her allies, her new friends, and delivered the final piece of the puzzle, the fragment of a multi-billion-year-old message from the creators of the entropy engine. It says, "The solution is not here. We failed. The great work is broken. Do not try to fix it. It cannot be fixed. All that we were is encoded in the ark, a new beginning, a different way. Forgive us." Silence, the chamber once a symbol of perfection, was now a nexus of cosmic dread and fragile, impossible hope. The ancient, godlike beings who had tried to save the universe had failed, but they had left something behind, an ark, a new beginning, a different way, and they had left a map. Valerius looked at the coordinates, then at the spreading stain of the unraveling on the map. The enemy was behind them, the unknown was before them. Their long peace was over. The age of sterile perfection was dead, but their civilization was not. It had been given a new purpose. "Ambassador," Valerius projected, its voice no longer just the sound of the glyptal, but something new, something forged in its alliance with the scarred and resilient humans. "It seems our journey together is just beginning." Eva Rostova looked at the prime resonator, and for the first time her calm expression was joined by a fierce, determined fire in her eyes. "Yes," she said, "it is. The first great civilization failed because they tried to build a perfect universe. Let's see if we can do better by simply trying to build a resilient one." On the great star map, a new course was plotted. A combined fleet of pristine, crystalline glyptal ships and scarred, enduring human vessels turned as one. They were no longer running from a forgotten ruin. They were sailing towards a new genesis, guided by the final, desperate message of a long-dead god. The universe was ending, but in that chamber, two species, one of perfect theory and one of imperfect practice, had chosen not to accept that ending. They would carry the memory of the old cosmos into the dawn of whatever came next together. The real work, the work of survival, had just begun.